kids growing up in the 90s, I'm already throwing up in my mouth a little bit at the realization that I'm starting this video by appealing to 90s nostalgia culture, were spoiled for choice when it came to animation. You had your Nickelodeons, your Fox Kids, and your Kids WBs, staples of the youths of modern, sensible 20 and 30-somethings across America. However, some of us, God, I'm gonna be sick again, 90s kids liked our cartoon-enabled time-wasting to be a bit different. Enter Cartoon Network's bastion of obscure animated freedom, Toonami. Debuting in 1997, the block began hosting animation from across the Pacific the following year, cementing staples like Dragon Ball Z and Sailor Moon into the American consciousness. Seriously, my mom has even heard of Dragon Ball Z. I know. I've checked. More amazingness like Robotech, and I see you making that snarky Macross comment already. Stop it, it's been 20 years. Would join the block the following year. Then the year 2000 happened, and... Do I have to say this? Yes, I know I wrote the script. Do I have to say it? Fine. We all became millennials, and Toonami ramped up the Japanimation significantly with Tenchimuyo, Trigun, Blue Submarine No. 6, and a certain giant robot show some of you might have heard of.
In the distant future, mankind has reached the stars, but the galaxy is troubled.
What do you think you're doing? Don't fire!
The Earthsphere Alliance rules the outlying colonies with an iron fist.
I'm sure God would understand the steps we're taking.
Isn't it about time you people realized the ones posing the most threat are none other than yourselves? We've had enough!
Those who oppose them...
We won't be needing you any further.
What?
die.
Of course, I'm talking about new mobile report Gundam Wing. Mobile Suit Gundam Wing. The story begins in After Colony 195 in yet another one of Gundam's infamous alternate timelines with Operation Meteor, a strategic military retaliation plot designed by members of the space colonies of this timeline against the Organization of the Zodiac, better known simply as Oz. Oz worked on many a military death machine, and in their employ was one Duo Maxwell, an orphan boy who worked on a certain said death machine at a secret facility in the L2 colony cluster. Upon hearing of Operation Meteor, he became determined to destroy the suit for many reasons, but instead, the head of the project, Professor G, let him steal it for other reasons. At this point, I should probably stop stalling because many of you that haven't seen Gundam Wing probably think I'm talking about the hero suit, the Wing Zero. But that is where you're wrong. I'm talking about the XXG-01D Gundam Deathscythe, which was destroyed by Duo's former employer. But then became this. The custom stealth close quarters mobile suit XXXG-01D2 Gundam Deathscythe Hell. Rebuilt, re-equipped, and re-edgelorded with active cloaking, hyperjammers, Vulcan guns, and a dual-bladed big-ass beam scythe. Along with being the first Gundam to use crop harvesting tools as weapons, the Deathscythe Hell's upgraded armor allowed Duo to basically forget about dodging attacks, which is a good thing, since its only real ranged weapon is its shield, which it takes off and throws at people. In kit form, it's a piece of work. Gorgeous colorization and loads of detail, as well as a surprising amount of posability despite the lack of an inner frame. Makes this one of my favorite 1/100th scale suits. But there's something different about this one. And no, it's not the lack of the inner frame, even though that is a little weird. See, this is not actually a Gundam Deathscythe Hell. It's not actually a Gundam. For legal reasons, this is not the same suit that appeared in Mobile Suit Gundam Wing. This is a bootleg from Dragon Momoko. Dragon Momoko is a Taiwanese plastic model production company that hit the scene around 2011. And they are far from the first company to create unlicensed mobile suit models. Companies like Daben Model, Hobby Star, Motor King, Hobby Crazy, and Gao Gao all have developed unlicensed mobile suits that, for the most part, are mirror images of their almost identically named counterparts. Many of these companies are based out of China, often undercutting officially licensed kits from Bandai by 20 to 50%. Many of these kits are recasts of Bandai's models, where the bootlegger simply takes an existing model's parts and makes new, cheaper molds with oftentimes much cheaper plastic. Buying bootleg models is typically a bit like buying cheap computer hardware from a discount store. Sometimes you get lucky and you find something worth your while, and other times you get things like this. There's also the consideration of the model itself and where it came from. The fact is that these designs are largely possible due to the, let's just say, nonchalant views on copyright infringement in places like China and some other parts of Southeast Asia. These companies operate without the Gundam license, designing kits and selling them, which makes certain people on the internet a bit nettled. On a post that I had made on the internet about a gaffe in the Deathscythe Hell's instruction manual, I received several comments, all from the same person, mind you, about how purchasing third-party kits does not support Bandai or Sunrise, which is technically correct, but in the same comment string, the same commenter, who, for the record, is entitled to their opinion, mentions how Bandai and Sunrise are losing money because of this kit advertising itself as a Gundam, among other things. I have no real desire to get into too much detail because, as an esteemed internet celebrity, I have no need to engage in petty squabblings such as this. So anyway, despite the fact that Dragon Momoko doesn't have the word Gundam or Gunpla even once on their shipping materials, manuals, or anywhere else on the box, there is one fatal flaw in the logic of this thinking when it comes to this specific kit. Bandai has never made a 1/100th scale kit for this version of the Deathscythe Hell. As you may or may not already be aware, the 5 main suits of Gundam Wing were given complete redesigns for new mobile report Gundam Wing Endless Waltz. These redesigns were more akin to G-Gundam rejects trying to take themselves more seriously, and the original versions of these suits were far more real robot. See, there I go saying it again. I have to do a video on Real Robot versus Super Robot one of these days, then those in Endless Waltz. But to date, Bandai has yet to produce a Deathscythe Hell of any kind from the TV series, save for a very old high grade. This means that Dragon Momoko's kit is completely original, not a recast forgery, even if its source material comes from elsewhere. They even went as far as to add English translations to much of their packaging and instruction manual. Sort of. Right, so I have the box for the Dragon Momoko Deathscythe Hell here in my hand, and I'd like to share with you some of the translation that Dragon Momoko was kind enough to put on the box. Let's give this a try, shall we? With Deathscythe as the prototype, the operational performance on the basis of Deathscythe greatly strengthened its space. Add a pair of movable armor wings to the fuselage, greatly shenanigans the Deathscythe Hell's protection ability and tactical concealment. Also equipped with the double beam scythe, strengthens the attack after stress was increasing. The 80% workshop on the lunar surface, while Oz in the unrest of the normal smoothly from the factory to escape. Hidden in the L2 group of C-308 colonies and got the materials through the Oz Army convoy attack passing on the route, so that Deathscythe Hell can be completed. So there. Additional liberal use of the word translation comes in the form of its description of the large armored wings. Within the Moon Factory finished 80%, while Oz military unrest in machine from works successfully escape, hidden in the L2 CO8 colony by attacking Oz of passing route army transport fleet and material gain. Make the Deathscythe Hell can be finished. Continued on the next page, we see this blurb about the double-sided beam sickle. Even though it's a scythe, to Deathscythe to design a prototype, the Deathscythe greatly strengthened on the basis of the operational performance of the space, and then add a pair of movable armored wings on the fuselage, greatly strengthened the Deathscythe Hell's concealment of the protection and tactical equipment on the surface of the double beam sickle at the same time. Make its after strengthening fire damage to increase exponentially. And finally, a quick note of the grading of this kit. Real Grade is a new brand which, as its name indicates, aimed to be the real thing. We want to tell all generations who know Robot of the pleasure and excitement of making a mobile suit. Please be sure to enjoy the number of numerous gimmicks incorporated in this palm-size 1/100 scale model. So what about the kit itself? Bear in mind that I'm building this one straight, decals only, but I'll be detailing it another time, off screen. The thing is, there's a lot to like about this kit, as long as you're willing to look past its numerous flaws. We start with 18 runners worth of parts, some of them being the largest runners I've ever worked with. Detail-wise, the completed kit is probably closer to an Ironblood Orphan's full mechanics suit than a master grade, but some parts, like the feet, are gloriously over-engineered. I mean, just look at this. This is just the parts for the feet assembly, which would be amazing if one of the pieces wasn't missing out of the box. I eventually found it, but that's beside the point. Also, the plastic feels closer to that of a commemorative cup you'd get in a minor league baseball game than that of a model kit, but to its credit, the discount plastic does make the parts refreshingly easy to cut out, and it even featured a significant amount of undergating as well as 3 different kinds of hands. I did have a piece fall out of a runner as I was unpacking the thing, which made me a bit uneasy about the parts being flimsy or loose after assembly. Thankfully, it wasn't. Less thankfully, it was the exact opposite of that. Pretty much everything is a tight fit. More than a few times, I had to break out pliers to get parts to squeeze together, and even then, panel gaps are still present and very obvious. Now, to be fair, most of the worst panel gaps are on parts you don't really see. I know they're there, though, kinda like a hemorrhoid or that wasp nest that's gone ignored for far too long and is now becoming a liability, so build-wise, it's a bit of a mixed bag. And expect to build some calluses up on your fingertips, but this kit feels built like a tank. This is the first 1/100th kit that I've built that I feel like I could actually play with, rather than just display. Not that I would actually do such a thing, of course. I'm a mature adult after all. I would like to point out that I will always purchase a Bandai kit over a bootleg if one is available. And it's that last part that's most important. Many of the model builders I've talked to about this agree that bootlegs without licensed kits are, to an extent, an exception to the official release rule. I bought this kit to show it off on the internet, but for fans of the original Deathscythe Hell, right now, there's no other choice. Maybe by purchasing this kit and showing that this design is something that people want to see in Gunpla form, we'll eventually get an official master grade of the TV version of the Deathscythe Hell. Until then, this is all we've got. I've heard rumblings in various places online that this might have to do with something to the rights to parts of Gundam Wing being owned by a magazine, but considering I wasn't able to find anything concrete on this at the time I was doing research for this video, I'm going to chalk that up simply to rumor and leave it at that. At the end of the day, the Dragon Momoko Deathscythe Hell looks great, no doubt about it. I wish it had an inner frame, sure, but the parts feel sturdy and it's plenty posable for a kit I got for $35. Is it perfect? Of course not. I would prefer for it to have an inner frame, as I mentioned. I'd rather it not have a crap ton of panel gaps. I'd rather not have calluses on my fingers. I'd rather not bust out a vise in order to get parts to stick together. But it's still really solid. And if you put it up next to an official Wing Zero TV version and you didn't know Bandai never made one of these, you'd probably be none the wiser to this being a bootleg. Whether you consider that a problem or something that you don't care about is something for you to decide while building your own bad Gunpla. Take care.